I really love oxygen not included, but it's frustrating when the pipes end up like a huge mess of spaghetti. I've came up with an elegant solution. If there are no pipes, then there can't be any pipe spaghetti. I am starting a challenge without ever building any liquid pipes or gas pipes. Most important buildings will be banned in this challenge, and we must find alternative solutions. We will not only survive, but also make a nice comfy base for our dupes, and beat the ultimate goal of Great Escape. But that's just the beginning of the challenge. We are starting on the flipped planet, which means we must pass through the magma crust to reach the surface before we can launch rockets. You might think it's mandatory to use liquid airlocks and vacuum the workspace whenever we are dealing with magma, but I will confront magma face to face without using any liquid airlocks, vacuum, or atmosuits. But we're not done yet. Since we can't build any pipes, we cannot use suits or even oxygen masks to support the landing either. We have to land rockets on a new planet with our dupes completely naked. And of course, I'm not using bionics for sake of challenge. This is gonna be the revolutionary colony you've never seen. The mid-game is gonna be very tough when most popular builds are unusable. But fortunately, basic buildings like the outhouse, beds, oxygen diffuser, and basic power system isn't restricted by the challenge. The agriculture also works just fine, and we can easily plant mealwood for early food. You might thought it's impossible to plant bristle blossoms because we can't use pipes to feed hydroponic farm tiles, but we can actually plant them in regular farm tiles just like mealwood. This will require manual delivery, but I want our dupes to eat something better. And since we cannot ever use electrolyzer in this challenge, we can afford to spend most of the water on farming. The water required for supercomputer is also delivered by hand, so advanced research isn't affected. We can proceed to build mess tables to give the dupes some early morale. But the good days are about to end. The metal refinery requires piping, so it is unusable in this challenge. We could only rely on rock crushers for refined metals, and this also means we will be locked out from steel. That's not the worst part though. Electrolyzers are the fundamental oxygen generator for most colonies. Since we cannot use them without pipes, we have to find a new oxygen source before our little amount of algae runs out. The electric grill and the first round of bristleberry harvest is ready, but we don't have a cook in our colony yet. Let's see if there are any good dupe we can add to our team. Wow, a stinky with mechatronic skill? That's an extremely worthy recruit. It's nice to upgrade from eating raw food, but I am worried that dupe labor would be scarce in this challenge. Let's use an automated coal generator to replace the manual generator. Burning coal would release a lot of carbon dioxide, and we won't be able to use a carbon skimmer since it requires pipes. But we will enjoy the power now and worry about carbon dioxide later. The basic room setup is done, but there are still more we can do. Let's mop up this shallow pool so we can utilize the space properly. We're gonna add a fridge that will sit in carbon dioxide to slow down food spoilage. Since we have a mechatronic Stinky, we can start using the auto sweeper to store the cooked food into the fridge for us. I think we can afford a fifth dupe, so let's print the one with high machinery. The waterfront mess hall is a bit cramped, but we can always find more room for the fifth mess table if we aren't fixated on the room shape. There seems to be really little natural algae tiles. We're playing in Flip Planet instead of Terra, so that might have made a huge difference. Now I want to finish the base design quickly so I can start exploring for further oxygen sources. Since we have carefully preserved the natural plants here, let's transform this area into a natural reserve. It might look a bit weird that we're including the electric grill and the supercomputer inside the natural reserve, but there is no risk for room conflict because these buildings are insufficient to qualify as a kitchen or laboratory by themselves. I think we can extend the natural reserve further upwards so dupes can immediately get the buff after they step out from the bedroom. But speaking of this, we might have forgot about building a new bed for our fifth dupe. It doesn't seem to fit inside the current bedroom, but that's okay, we'll just start a new bedroom up here. Wait, it's a trap! If this oxalite tile released all of its oxygen, the sand above it will fall and all these water will be dumped into our base. We would have an aquatic colony if we noticed this a minute later. The progress options at home planet are really limited. I want to explore the teleporter planet and find out which resources we can find over there. If we launch rockets from other planets, it would be way easier than going through the magma crust. But I promised in the beginning that we will deal with magma directly without using suits or vacuuming the environment. The first rocket launch has to happen in the home planet. It's not hard to kickstart a base at the teleporter planet, we just need an outhouse for the first day. Since our dupes are slightly skilled, a mess hall and a cot would be sufficient to cover the morale requirement. There's guaranteed free food and oxygen at every teleporter planet, so we don't have to worry about those for a while. Let's start exploring this planet. Whoa! There's zombie spores in this oil biome. Maybe we should avoid uncovering them for now. Oh no, this slickster is drowning itself. You know what? Let's forget about zombie spores and just save the poor little critter. Since slicksters eat carbon dioxide for food, that gives us a good idea. We are looking for a solution to remove carbon dioxide. Maybe the lovely slickster would be our good companion. We already uncovered the zombie spores, so might as well just keep digging for more lead and hope the spores doesn't get us. If we were to send some lead back home, the conveyor loader would require power to operate. Coal can also be found on this planet, so a coal generator with lead smart batteries would be handy. We are down to the last few tiles of algae at home. Since we're already approaching the border of these two water pools, why don't we just merge them into one? Although we found the teleporter planet, the resources we can send back home with the supply teleporter is very limited. We couldn't send any liquid or gas because that would require using pipes. And we can't send a slickster either because you can't load living creatures into a conveyor loader. Since we have gained some space after merging the pools, we can upgrade our mess hall into a great hall. It's a nice timing to give our dupes a fine dining room because our researcher must head over to the teleporter planet and activate the supply teleporters. Although we can't send gas or liquid, we can deliver a considerable amount of lead back home. They would be very handy for building automation and rocketry later. The oxygen at the second planet is getting thin, so I'm sending the digger back home because we already got a lot of lead to spare. There's also algae in this planet, so we can still use oxygen diffusers. Why do I feel like both planets have a lot of resources in common? I am completely relying on coal power right now. The manual generator is removed during a base remodel and I haven't built it back yet. According to the game, the coal generator only runs for about 30% of the time on average. This means the power consumption of the entire base is only 180 watts. Since most power-hungry buildings are banned in this challenge, we have a lot of power budget to spare. That's an unexpected advantage for us. But the carbon emission has to be dealt with or our base will be flooded with carbon dioxide. We can't send a live slickster through the teleporter, but we can send their eggs. It will take 20 days for it to hatch naturally, so I'm speeding it up by lullabying it inside an incubator. The incubator consumes a lot of power, but we can turn it off when the lullabied status is still active. This is usually done by automation, but this slickster is likely the only critter we will ever lullaby, so I wouldn't bother with it. The carbon level keeps growing, but we aren't running a private jet in our base, so we should have enough time until the slickster could hatch and start eating carbon for us. But just like normal colonies, the critical problem is usually not too much carbon dioxide, but lack of oxygen. What we can do at this stage is to prepare a tank filled with polluted water so it would release polluted oxygen for us to breathe. It isn't a big deal for our dupes to live in polluted oxygen, but since we have a lot of sand to spare, let's purify the air with automated deodorizers. We've already made a natural reserve, but since we've preserved so many wild plants, we could also make the deodorizer area and glacier biome into more natural reserves. Looks like the egg just hatched into a cute little slickster. Welcome to this colony. Our current shallow polluted water pool is definitely insufficient to supply enough oxygen for our dupes. We cannot utilize liquid from teleporter until we break through the magma crust, so we have to start extracting polluted water from the glaciers. We better be fast because the oxygen level is already getting thin. We have some polluted water up here that we can use, but there's a lot of water in the way. Because water is lighter than polluted water, it will stay on top and block the polluted water emission. We need to carefully guide the polluted water down without being contaminated by clean water. Now that we moved water out of the way, we could release the polluted water safely. This should drastically boost our polluted oxygen production rate, but we still need much more polluted water to be safe. There's a lot of polluted ice in the glaciers. It's easy to just dig and melt them into polluted water, but we will lose half of the mass by digging them out. I want to melt them instead and preserve all the precious polluted water we could get. The first way I tried is to build some random temp shift plates next to the polluted ice. Since polluted ice melt at -17 degrees, room temperature materials should be relatively hot for this purpose. But unfortunately, this doesn't seem to work. A lot of heat is dispersed into the air, and not enough heat is actually conducted to the ice. Let's try again with building regular tiles instead. Would this make any difference? Yeah, Stinky just got himself stuck. Is this even surprising at all? Maybe we can take a short break and make some berry sludges that never spoil. There's a lot of wild weeds growing in the glaciers, so we don't need to grow our own. The oxygen is still just barely enough, so let's get back to ice melting. Next thing I want to try is the space heater. If you're an experienced player, you would probably know space heaters are really inefficient and they're rarely used in any serious builds. But the more powerful TabeYuriko is still under research, and other alternatives like the metal refinery and aquatuner is completely unusable in this challenge. So let's test for a while to see if the space heater is even capable of doing anything useful. Looks like it worked. Let's see if some insulation could help it melt the remaining tiles. We did manage to melt most of the polluted ice, probably because they were so warm that they were already close to the melting threshold. Now the oxygen looks even better, and the carbon level has also significantly dropped. There's a huge chunk of polluted ice to the top left. If we are able to melt these, that should keep us free from oxygen issues for quite a while. But this time, there's too much mass and coldness, so I think it is time to summon the TabeYuriko we just researched. I'm digging up the tiles that are not polluted ice in order to isolate them, so we don't end up wasting power to heat the entire biome. The TabeYuriko needs to be submerged in sufficient liquid to operate, so we have to dump some water here. We also want some temp shift plates to accelerate heat conduction and to enable diagonal heat exchange. Looks like a polluted ice tile already melted from the warmth of the water we just dumped. But heat cannot be transferred directly between two temp shift plates, so it's better to add in solid tiles between them for a much faster heat transfer. As the polluted ice tiles close to us are melted, we could extend our temp shift plates and tiles to apply the TabeYuriko heat on further tiles and melt them. But somehow, some water still end up in our polluted water tank. As we mentioned, the layer of water will block the polluted water emission. We need to deal with this, but we can't mop liquid that's not on the ground. We do have a solution. If we build some mesh tiles, this will allow us to mop some of the water. This AETN here is blocking us from building tiles. We have no use for this machine because it requires pipes to operate. Let's just make our builder learn the skill and demolish this obstacle. After all these new polluted water added, our base is once again quite breathable. There's also another glacier to the left of our base that we can utilize. I also found it interesting that the TabeYuriko is not an industrial machinery. This means we can do our melting maneuvers in a natural reserve. But polluted ice is finite and non-sustainable after all. If we were to make a sustainable base, we need to find a useful geyser. According to the planet overview, there should be a polluted water geyser in the teleporter planet. I checked all the geysers we have already revealed, but unfortunately, none of them is the polluted water geyser. This means it's still hidden somewhere in the fog of war, and we have to return to the planet to explore once again. The first suspect is the fog on the right, but there isn't anything interesting to be found, so the only major area we can explore is the bottom of the planet. Yep, the polluted water geyser is right at the bottom. This planet is really tiny, so there just isn't much space for the geyser to hide from us. We need to dig through diamond tiles to access the geyser, which requires the third tier of digging skill, but it's never too late to learn new things. There's a free comfy bed for us, and I think our digger definitely deserves a better bed. I would expect the dupes to visit this geyser very frequently when they are harvesting the polluted water, so let's improve the path a little bit. At this stage, we haven't break through the magma crust yet, so we couldn't send a rocket to deliver liquid. But we can just do more digging to enlarge the space for the geyser. As long as the geyser doesn't overpressure, we aren't losing anything, so there's no need to panic on harvesting the polluted water right away. It's taking so much time to work with a single dupe, so let's send our researcher there to analyze the geyser and assist with the building projects. We don't have to worry much about the oxygen supply, because the polluted water geyser is supposed to be the biggest oxygen producer. That's why we're coming here in the first place. On the other hand, wild food is unlikely enough to support both dupes, so let's plant some mealwood here. The geyser analysis is completed, and we have made enough room for the geyser to vent. But the magma digging project cannot start without our specialized digger. We've delayed it for long enough. It's time to return home and play with magma. There's already magma sitting right at the entrance of our digging path, but we have already prepared a triage cot in advance. Let's see how bad could it be. Ooh! The magma boiled some water into steam as soon as it was dumped into the water below. But the extreme heat is quickly neutralized by the surroundings, and the steam also condensed back to water. Nature is powerful, isn't it? But the top part is still scorching hot. You might think it's due to the remaining magma up there, but a tiny drop of magma just isn't significant anymore. The obvious heat conductor are the obsidian tiles, but the abyssalite tiles is also a factor. A common misconception is that abyssalite tiles are perfect insulators, but it's not. Abyssalite has a minuscule non-zero thermal conductivity that could conduct noticeable amount of heat when it's exposed to liquid or gas. Let's try replacing the closest abyssalite tiles with insulated tiles. This doesn't seem to make much difference, because the abyssalite on the right is also still heating up the gas. But what if we build some more tiles up there? Now that looks much better. Abyssalite tiles conduct very poorly with solid, so even non-insulated tiles work in our favor. There's still an entire column of hot rocks and magma on top of us, but we did successfully expand the safe area. We have just survived 100 days, and the colony is in a good position to continue our magma project. Although we have only advanced one small step into magma, I'm confident we could break free from this jail of magma and reach the surface. Now, our dupes could safely take an additional step into the scorching ceiling and build another pair of new tiles. I forgot to mention earlier, but the relative temperature overlay is set to 75 degrees, which is just above the scalding threshold. This means areas in blue are not freezing cold, but merely non-scalding. Dupes will be scalded if they stay in green and yellow areas for longer than a few seconds, and they will be cooked almost immediately in red areas. But as we advance higher, a new problem will be waiting for us, which is the hot debris we get from digging. The first few natural tiles we already dug didn't cause any problems, because they were abyssalite tiles. Abyssalite debris doesn't conduct heat and gas, so it's not a threat at all. But digging any other kind of tiles up there will result in a sudden heat spike, which is very dangerous for our dupes. Since we have auto sweepers available, I want to use the conveyor system to help us deal with the upcoming threat. We've already dug out some hot obsidian tiles before the auto sweeper is ready, and our digger is scalding. We need the auto sweeper now. Putting hot stuff on conveyor rails actually accelerates the heat exchange and makes the environment even hotter. But as long as we could keep our dupes out from the danger, who would care about machine overheating? With the conveyor system set up, we are much more confident to resume digging more hot rocks. The rocks would be automatically thrown into the water pool below and become completely harmless. What? Looks like we are out of dirt to refill the outhouses. Sometimes you could miss out basic things when you're concentrated on a project. In a normal colony, you wouldn't have to spend all these effort. All you need is a liquid lock and vacuum out the magma workspace, and the dupes can work with no risk of scalding at all. But we aren't choosing to do it this way because it's easy, we're doing it because it's hard. I want to prove that liquid locks and vacuum isn't the only possible way to play with magma. There are many ways to quickly cool down this area back to a safe temperature. We could simply remove the hot tiles or rocks and wait for the environment to cool it. We could even just build regular tiles for cooling, since the scalding threshold is 70 degrees. Anything at room temperature could be considered a coolant in this context. Ice temp shift plates are of course way colder, but it would take much longer time to build those compared to regular tiles, so it might not be feasible to build them on an already scalding hot spot. But of course, all of these methods are temporary. There is endless heat for us to cool until the heat leak is stopped. Our progress is only secured when our wall of insulated tiles actually advance upwards. We're about to enter the narrow passage, and the mission would only get more dangerous. I want to use robo-miners to do the initial digging for us. Robo-miners can reach much further than dupes, and it could also dig through diagonal gaps. It is only eligible of digging soft materials, so it could not dig abyssalite or obsidian. But this is actually an advantage for us. The magma border consists completely of hard materials, so the robo-miner could never open up the border and dump the entire planet of magma on us. Some of the debris could be moved out with auto-sweepers, but eventually we still have to unseal the ceiling to proceed. But the robo-miner dug out more tiles after the wall is open, and the dupes ended up grabbing the sweeping job themselves. The extreme heat incapacitated one of our poor dupes. It's definitely not a joke to carry 1,000 degrees of rock by hand. But at least, Bert has a balloon to play with while recovering on the bed. The dupes are back to full health after 2 days of rest, but the worksite has become too hot for dupes to stay in it. We need to take a step back. I want to bring some ice up here, melt them into water, and build a little pool to collect it. The pool will serve as a heat buffer and a cool source that can be used to cool the hot tiles above. Just like how we melted polluted ice in the glaciers, we will use temp shift plates to accelerate heat exchange between the water pool and the hot tiles. Once we cool down these tiles, we can expand with alternating patterns of temp shift plates and tiles upwards. This allows us to guide the coolness of the water pool into the hot air above. When more areas are cooled down to look blue in the overlay, we are safe to enter the area and continue our expansion. But can we use these hot rocks to our advantage instead of just treating them like a bomb? We have another glacier just below the work zone. If we dig a hole and dump those hot debris onto polluted ice tiles, we could use the heat to melt the ice for us. Why waste power to generate heat when we have so many hot stuff that need to be dealt with? Our colony is still doing quite well. We have good oxygen concentration, excellent morale, and sufficient food. The only concern is that we might run out of polluted water for oxygen before we can break free from this planet. It's reassuring that we could melt this glacier along with the surface breaching project. Now let's paint more scary red areas into blue with our tiles. We have got a bit too far away from our water pool buffer. Let's bring more ice and set up a new pool up here as the new bridgehead. The passage is really narrow, so we need to steal as much building space from the magma as possible in order to have enough space to fit the water pool while not blocking dupe movement. The new water bridgehead is completed. We can now continue our expansion. We are just one screen away from reaching the surface. I am already dreaming about how we should design our rockets. What the f? A hot sand tile fell into our pool and now there's steam everywhere. Maybe we should have get rid of the sand tile before bringing water up here, but I wasn't aware of that. The autosweeper came to our rescue once again and thrown all the hot debris away for us. But is there anything else we can do to help? Should we build more ice temp shift plates to cool this area? Never mind, the heat got absorbed on its own before we could intervene. Most of the hot sand was thrown into the glacier below before it could release too much heat, so our water pool and tiles were able to bring the temperature back to normal. But the new ice would sure be useful if we are attacked by more hot stuff later. The current terrain is exposed to heat both to the left and right, so it might not be able to prevent scalding completely, but if we split the jobs and execute only 1 or 2 tasks at a time, our dupes should be able to get out before they're too seriously scalded. I want to build an insulated tile here, but as soon as we dig out the natural tile, the regular tile on the left is exposed to magma directly and starts to heat up. Scary, isn't it? But after the insulate tile is constructed, the regular tile quickly cooled down. Having enough heat buffer in this area is really helpful. Woo! Some water is almost boiling! This is the site where we dumped all the hot rocks, and looks like the abyssalite tile below it is blocking heat transfer. After we opened up the border, so many ice tiles melted quickly. We have accumulated an enormous amount of heat that might end up in a steam disaster instead of melting ice for us. We're so close to space now, but we're approaching the part where abyssalite border is broken. We have to face the uninsulated magma heat once we get near. At this stage, we're getting too far from our water pool, and the regular tiles are starting to heat up to the dangerous level of green and yellow. There's really not enough space to build a new water pool up there, so we could only cool down these tiles by rebuilding them. It's possible to directly build a tile over an existing one if we choose a different material, so we don't need to deconstruct before we can build new ones. The top tiles are being constantly cooked, so we have to keep redoing the reconstruction whenever they are hot again. Interestingly, these 2 abyssalite tiles aren't that hot, so we could afford to open up the wall here to fit a robo-miner. Always feel nice to have machines do dangerous jobs for our dupes. The robo-miner has stopped working, but if we open up the wall on the left, it should be able to dig a few more tiles for us. Now the tiles heat up even much faster than before. We have to do tile replacement also faster to keep up with the pace. We have to seize the time to build insulated tiles when the area is still safe right after a tile replacement. Otherwise, the wall will heat up again quickly and we can't make any progress. The wall to the right is expanded and safely insulated. We can now resume digging upwards. Not again! How did I miss the sand tile for the second time? This might take more scalding than the last time to fix, but our conveyor system will clean up the mess for us, right? Yeah, it kinda settled down. We just have to rebuild the yellow walls to bring things back to normal. Now we can get back to work. We have been following the narrow path between the abyssalite layer so far, but now that we are so close to surface, would that still be the best choice? Oh wait, our dupes made a mess again? We still have dirt to refill the outhouses, but they are all out of order. Our dupes are probably too occupied on the surface breach project and didn't have time to clean the outhouses. Or maybe I never bothered to set a proper priority for that. I decided to take a step to the left and advance from this column, so we don't have to deal with all those random tiles on the passage. But first we have to expand to the left with insulated tiles. Wait! If we dig out this tile now, the entire pool of magma will be dumped on our head. That was a bad order. We should have built the tile below first. It would be such a tragedy if we messed up everything when we are so close to the surface. Now the insulated wall is completed, we just have to dig up from this column. Oh, there's some hot obsidian here. We need to get these out from the worksite. Ouch! Bert is incapacitated. He probably did too many dangerous missions in a row. We really need to get him on the triage cot now. Or maybe get him into an outhouse first? Alright, once we finish this insulated tile, there shall be no more suffering. Huh? Did our dupe just build the tile through another tile? I guess once they are assigned to the job, they are determined enough to ignore any terrain updates. Finally, we have break free from the jail of magma and breached the surface. It's so easy to dig tiles when we work from the top and all of the annoying gas is destroyed by the space exposure. That's just how Magma Project works in a regular play when you vacuum out the workspace. Enough talk about magma. There's still lots of challenge ahead for this run, and it's time to start building our first rocket. There are many types of rocket in oxygen not included, and my personal favorite is the carbon dioxide rocket and the steam rocket. But they both require a gas pipe to fuel, so they cannot be used in this challenge at all. Actually, the only valid choice we have is the sugar rocket, which relies on solid fuel, and the Radbolt rocket, which doesn't require any tangible material. The Radbolt rocket is still locked behind many researches. Let's keep it simple and use the sugar rocket for our mission. But before we can even think about launching the rocket, we have to first scout the star map with a telescope. In order to use a telescope comfortably and safely, we have to provide oxygen in the working environment. We cannot use gas pipes to do this, but we have a very simple solution, which is the sublimation station. We have been carefully preserving the polluted dirt produced from the outhouses, and they are now an excellent oxygen source for our rocket missions. Since we have a nice telescope workspace, it only took us 3 days to scout the area surrounding our home and reveal the third planet. We need a dupe with piloting skill to operate the rocket. What else do we need? The sugar rocket needs oxidizer on top of fuel to operate. There are some natural oxalite tiles in our home planet, and the fuel we need is sucrose, which is also native to our home. This means we don't have to worry about the resources for our very first rocket launch, but I'm gonna set up a Sweetle ranch so we can produce sucrose for further rocket missions. The Sweetles could serve as alternative food source if we ever run short of water, and they could also help boosting the growing speed of our plants. Wow, 32 morale. Our dupes might had a hard time going through the magma crust, but they are enjoy life right now, isn't it? The fueling is completed and we can start our first rocket mission now. The exhaust of sugar rockets is really hot. It could go even hotter than magma. It's so nice that the hot gas would all be sucked in by space exposure, so we don't have to deal with it ourselves. Our target for the first rocket launch is the teleporter planet. It's so close to our home that it takes less than half a day to go there, so we don't need to prepare any food for the crew. We have already developed this planet with the teleporter, so we can just land directly on an existing rocket platform. I know this looks way too easy for a challenge video, but we didn't get to the challenging part yet. There are many more planets that we must land without a rocket platform later. But it looks like I built the rocket platform too low, so the hot gas couldn't be deleted fast enough. Yikes. Our goal for the first rocket mission is very simple. We are coming for polluted water. The polluted water vent is uncovered many days ago, and it vented so much polluted water for us. It's time to transport it back home. We can't use liquid pipes, but we can collect polluted water with pitcher pump and dump it into the rocket with bottle emptiers. This is such a primitive way that it could be done without any technology. With so many dupes dedicated to this job, the delivery speed is actually quite fast. It's just slightly slower than a full automated liquid pump and piping system. But there's a huge problem. Our dupes have over 90% stress and they are almost at their limit. This planet seems to be overpressured with polluted oxygen, so dupes are getting popped eardrums. That's what would happen when we leave polluted water pools unattended. It seems the stress source cannot be stopped fast enough, so we might as well just don't stop it. Instead, let's just run with the current polluted water we collected and head back home. It might seem we have left a bit earlier than expected, but we cannot fill the entire rocket with polluted water anyway, because we have to keep some breathing space for our dupes after all. Stress reactions are coming, but the rocket is a perfect place for stress handling. There's a famous quote. The best place to hide a leaf is in a forest, and the best place to vomit is in a polluted water rocket. The flight time back home is also about half a day, which is just right for a vomiting schedule. Now our dupes can disembark the rocket and get back to our sweet home in a good shape. But how do we move the polluted water out from the rocket? That's the easy part. We could just deconstruct the cockpit, and everything stored inside it will be dropped and auto-bottled for us. We've managed to bring back 13 tons of polluted water. That's enough to support 6 dupes at home for 30 cycles. But it will last much longer than that, because some of our dupes will be going for the next rocket mission. We would be heading towards a completely undeveloped planet this time, so we need to prepare much more resources than the last time. Food is definitely required in this trip, but we have prepared in advance. Since we started planting bristle blossoms, we have saved some bristleberries and mushed them with wild sleet wheat into berry sludge. Berry sludge never spoils, so it's a very nice food type for space travel. It will also provide 8 morale for our crew, which is quite helpful. The most important thing to do when approaching a new planet is to build a rocket platform for our rocket to land. This can be done with 2 Trailblazer easily in a normal colony, but for this run we need more than that. Because we can't use oxygen masks or atmosuits, the dupes will not have enough time to build the rocket platform before they suffocate. My solution is to support them with an orbital cargo module, but our sugar rocket doesn't have enough height to fit anything else, so we have to remove the rocket battery module and place the battery in the cockpit instead. We built a lot of storage bins in the cockpit initially to bring the resources we need for developing a new planet, but bins are just for convenience purpose, they aren't mandatory. Once the resources are delivered, we could just drop them on the ground as debris, so they wouldn't take up any space. That shall give us enough room to fit a battery. Alright, it is time for the second rocket launch. This time, we will be going to the radioactive ocean planet. It's still quite close to home, but the journey will sure be different. Building melted? Wow, the sugar rocket exhaust melted one of the tiles. Kinda scary, isn't it? I'm glad that dupes are immune to melting in this game, so we won't be hit by some unpleasant accidents. But they aren't immune to peeing on the ground. A bit embarrassing since they aren't in a pee water pool anymore, but it's not very feasible to fit an outhouse in the rocket at this stage. We have to make sacrifices sometimes as a pioneer, right? We're now approaching the new planet orbit, and it's time for the landing operation. The first step is to deploy the orbital cargo we carefully prepared. And then we can trailblaze our digger Maya onto the surface. After landing, she will unpack the cargo as fast as possible. This is the only hope to save her from suffocation. The material that saved her isn't new to us. It's oxalite. The same thing that's essential for sugar rockets could also save our lives. Now we have a little room to recover our breath. We can land the second dupe and convert the 2 trailblazers into a rocket platform. We can land our rocket now, but not so fast. If the dupes stay in the landing area, they will be scalded by the rocket exhaust. Let's assign some random digging jobs to distract them from the dangerous area. The first thing we need to do after landing is to build a manual generator in the cockpit. This wasn't necessary earlier because the sugar rocket generates 60 watts of power during flight, exactly enough to run the sublimation station. Now that the rocket isn't flying anymore, it no longer generates power, and we would suffocate if we forget to build a new power source. Our dupes finally have an outhouse they can use. That's a giant leap for dupe kind. A natural reserve could be made right on the spot thanks to the wild plants in this planet. It's also easy to find a room to make into a mess hall. Now our dupes can start developing the planet with 9 morale from rooms. One thing we need to be aware of is the cosmic radiation. It's much stronger in this planet and could make our dupes sick. The area where the dupes would be most exposed is these two columns because they weren't shielded by any tiles. But this means, if we add our own tiles on top, they could block out a large percent of radiation. As long as the radiation dose isn't too much, our dupes can expel them safely while peeing. But we forgot the most important thing. We have to generate oxygen in this planet. The planet is currently completely unbreathable, so dupes have to hold their breath to build the power system and run the wheel. It sounds a bit ridiculous that we totally forgot about oxygen for 2 days, but dupes could still run to the rocket to catch their breath, then head back to work. That's really inefficient for sure, but they did survive even when oxygen is not included. The dupes can finally breathe normally, so let's start digging to get more space for the oxygen and make a bedroom for our dupes. I am also curious to see what this planet could offer us. Remember we talked about how oxalite could be used as rocket oxidizer, but it also serves as emergency oxygen source on dupe landing mission? That sounds convenient, but it also means we would be using a lot of oxalite for space traveling. There are some natural oxalite tiles we can find to replenish our stockpile. There's not a lot of it, but every bit helps. This planet is now quite survivable, but we're not going to stop here. It's time to start scouting the star map from this planet. We need to find 5 planets to settle before we are qualified to charge the temporal tear opener. But, what's up, crab? Can you stop staring at Otto like that? Why is there a crab on the surface in the first place? I know you're just protecting your egg, so let's help moving your egg to a safer place, alright? I guess we are friends now? Speaking of critter, the most important critter in this planet is actually betas. They're hostile to us, but they will harvest uranium ore and convert it into enriched uranium. Later on, the enriched uranium will be very useful when we are charging the temporal tear. We haven't finished scouting the star map yet, but I realized I made a silly mistake. The sugar rocket can be refueled easily without returning home because we could bring sucrose and oxalite on board with us. But somehow, I only remembered to bring extra oxalite and forgot to bring extra sucrose with us. Let's take a quick trip back home to pick up sucrose while the researcher is still working with the telescope. I hope this crab would be fine. The telescope is overheating and would break very soon, but we might be able to reveal the 5th planet just in time. What? That was not a planet? Did we build this telescope for nothing? We do have quite a lot of sucrose available already, so we can launch again immediately after bringing them on the rocket. But it has been a long time since we checked on our 2nd planet. The polluted water pool is covered with too much carbon dioxide again. Let's give it a fix. Remember our cute little slickster friend? If we bring one of them here, it will happily eat all the carbon dioxide for us. It looks very buoyant, so we don't need to worry about them drowning. While the slickster is doing its job, our rocket has returned to the radioactive planet and brought back sucrose. Now it's time to wrap up, and we really need to make sure to bring all the important resources. It will take many days for the bees to produce enough enriched uranium for us, so we will come back here to harvest them later. Let's go to the 4th planet. Our rocket crew seems to be in a pretty nice condition. This trip will take much longer than previous ones, but I have an idea. Let's land on Desolans first, then head to the 4th planet immediately. This will be a touch-and-go landing, so I'm gonna change this door setting to make sure no crew will attempt to leave the rocket. It seems that we are taking a route that's even longer, but in oxygen not included, rocket landing and launching is done almost instantly. Therefore, it's often faster to land in other planets during the flight, even if flying a bit off course. We are now approaching the orbit of the 4th planet. Since we already tried landing without pipes before, we should be experienced enough to do the operations fast and smoothly. Deploy orbital cargo, land the first duplicate. Unpack the oxalite packet and take a breath. Why is there bleachstone? Is it trying to sterilize the air for us? Land the second duplicate and build the rocket platform. Land the rocket and stay away from the scorching gas. Build a natural reserve and build an outhouse. Build a mess hall and build a sublimation station. build a bedroom, and build a mini-pod. We found some dirt, and we found even more polluted dirt. Now we no longer have to worry about oxygen supply during space traveling. Let's find the artifact in this planet and take it as a souvenir. We found some Paku, but we are not doing 100 dupes challenge, so we'll leave them alone. It's about time to leave again and go for another new planet. At this point, you might think it's getting a bit repetitive, but the 5th planet will be quite different. First of all, we don't even know where the 5th planet is. We know there must be a 5th planet close to us, because we're playing in the Moonlit cluster, which contains 5 planets in total. But in order to actually find it, we must mount a telescope on our rocket. The interior is really small, so this definitely wasn't easy. The rocket on the left was how it looked like 10 days ago. We sacrificed so many buildings just to fit the telescope and power it. It seems ridiculous that even the rocket control station is gone, but the rocket can fly without it except for launching. The rocket will fly at half the speed as a penalty, but it takes some time to scout the star map, so it doesn't really matter. I'm actually more worried about the sublimation station. Could it run properly with all the carbon dioxide on the bottom? Yup, it seems to be running fine. The pea water on the ground might have made it immune to overpressuring. We have made a submerged sublimation station design. Finally, we found the 5th planet, the Frozen Forest. This planet isn't very appealing to me in a normal play, and I won't pick this as a starter planet unless I'm deliberately doing a challenge. But this time, there is a good reason for us to stay here. We'll see in a moment. I guess we don't need to explain building the same set of rooms for the 3rd time. But since we're staying here for a bit longer, I want to build something better for our dupes, and this will take some extra research. Our researcher is part of the rocket crew, but since there is water in this planet, we can do research right here. Finally, clean water has some use for us. First thing I want to do is to upgrade the mess hall to a banquet hall. This room has a lot of requirements, but we should be able to cover them all. The party line phone will serve as a recreation building while having a small footprint. Remember, we took an artifact from the 4th planet? Displaying it on a pedestal will double as an ornament and as a decor building. And while we were in the 3rd planet, we harvested some wood from the arbor trees. This allows us to build the communal table. Our dupes can finally dine together in the banquet hall. We're not gonna stop here. Let's decorate with metal tiles, craft masterpiece sculptures, and sweep random debris on the ground. These aren't related to survival anymore. I just think my dupes deserve a full decorated base for once. As we are decorating the base, the big thing we are waiting for finally arrived. It's the oxalite meteor shower. Remember we mentioned that oxalite is essential for this challenge? Since we can't use the oxalite refinery, there aren't a lot of ways to make renewable oxalite. We could make a dense puff drench, but it wouldn't be as simple as harvesting oxalite meteors. It's usually a bit hard to breathe when they have to run so far on the surface. But they're literally collecting an oxygen generator, so I guess there's nothing to worry about. But there's a problem with storing oxalite because they would off-gas into oxygen. We could use the same technique for storing slime. Just dump a bit of pea water on the tile of oxalite storage, and as long as the liquid is more than 1800 grams, that shall prevent any off-gas from happening. We're about to return home, and since we aren't planning to land on new planets soon, we could remove the Trailblazer modules so the rocket would fly faster and to have the room to build our rocket battery module back. Woo! 30 morale! Looks like our dupes are enjoying staying in this planet. We should be coming back later to harvest more oxalite, so all these decoration won't be wasted. Since we haven't finished scouting the star map around this planet, let's explore deeper and see if there's anything useful. We found another artifact that we can use, and a cool slush geyser venting polluted water. I think the polluted water vent at the teleporter planet should be enough for our dupes, but a backup is always welcome. Let's dig it out and give it more room to vent. Alright, time to get back home. Speaking of our polluted water vent, let's give it another check. Looks like we're a food poisoning germ millionaire, but dupes don't drink polluted water, so this is completely irrelevant for us. All that matters is that the slickster is still doing its job. After traveling for so long in the outer space, our rocket crew is finally back home, but it seems dupes aren't really enjoying the trip and Maya is throwing a tantrum. It's okay, better to release the stress than letting it build up. They should be relieved soon because we're also gonna have a banquet hall at home. They will take the time to enjoy life before we go for another rocket mission. I am known for treating dupes very well in case you haven't heard of that. As the dupes are relaxing, we've brought another slickster into the rocket to clean up the carbon dioxide. It's elderly and would pass away very soon, but at least it could enjoy a good meal. Now it is time to launch again. We are just bringing in 2 dupes on board because this is a pure scouting mission. We're just trying to locate the tundra planet and not prepared to land at all. But now that I think of it, can we make the rocket into a mess hall to make it a better place for our dupes? We could also sweep all debris into the corner to improve decor. This is very time consuming, but there's not much to do on the rocket right now anyway. Unfortunately, the mess hall has to go because we have reached the unknown area and we have to clear up space to fit the telescope. Wait a second. I think we could actually still fit 2 mess tables after all. They have to be separated, but that is totally fine. This is possible because we don't need to fit a battery or manual generator in the rocket, which is because we could afford a battery module, which is because we deconstructed the trailblazers. This is a really nice rocket, but maybe we're still missing an outhouse? But hey, we just found the tundra planet. The scouting mission is accomplished and we're going back home. Before we actually go to the tundra planet for the temporal tear opener, we need to prepare a few things. The first stop will be the radioactive ocean to harvest enriched uranium. What? The rocket platform is entombed? Now we couldn't land the rocket. That was unfortunate and we have to return home. We do have a solution to deal with this, which is to build a trailblazer back. Just land our digger with the trailblazer, clear the tile for us, and the rocket can now land normally. Enriched uranium, I'm gonna get you. Harvesting from the hive sounds scary, because the bees could sting the dupes. But from my experience, most of the time they're too lagged to do anything. I'm rather worried about the future of this little pip. We've harvested over 500 kilograms of enriched uranium. That should be more than enough for our mission. It has been about 100 days since our last collection of polluted water, so for the next stop, we are going back to our second planet to get more. I also want to try more recreation buildings for our dupes, but could any of them be used without any pipes? Oh yeah, let's start with the jukebot. "13 kilograms of carbon dioxide? That doesn't sound good. It's a nice time to invite another slickster into our rocket team. Alright, time to get back home. I find it brilliant that the rocket control station can be used while submerged. I guess it must be intended for this kind of rocket interior design. But after all, the polluted water is supposed to be transported back home, so we're rebuilding the cockpit to eject all the resources. It will take some effort to fetch all the solid stuff back into the rocket, but I think it's still much faster than manually pumping all the liquid out. Since all the buildings are also removed, we can make a brand new rocket interior design. This rocket will be different from the previous ones because it will have an outhouse, a major breakthrough for our rocket crew. The rocket hasn't launched yet, but our dupes already can't wait to give it a try. We are ready for the tundra planet and the temporal tear mission, but let's have one last recreation time before we go. What kind of dupes wouldn't love playing video games? The dupes are in a really high spirit, even reaching 40 morale for a moment. Although, to be honest, these numbers won't last for long after the room effects from the home planet wear out. But even with no room bonus, this is still a nice rocket for our dupes. We have the Slickster companion to deal with carbon dioxide, we have an outhouse, and dupes are not stressed at all. The moment has come. Let the ultimate tundra landing begin. Unlike the previous planets, the tundra planet isn't suitable for surviving, but we should be able to deal with it. Hey, this is not the time to sleep. Wake up. It's red alert. Maya is suffocating, but she should be able to unpack the oxalite cargo soon enough. Huh? There's 3 dupes suffocating? The rocket is out of oxygen. Now I get it. The rocket is out of power and the sublimation station stopped working. It seems too late to generate power, but there is one last way to save them. Move the rocket immediately. I was really scared for a moment, but it seems our dupes are safe for now. Because we have been flying with no battery at all, the rocket runs out of power as soon as it stopped flying. But when we ordered the rocket to move, it instantly resumes generating power. That bought us valuable time to replace the buildings and generate power inside the rocket. Alright, everything looks fine. Cabin crew, prepare for landing. Looks like we failed to stop the crew from scalding themselves. We'll fix this with triage cots instead. We got oxygen generation covered, so here comes a mess hall and a bedroom. It's a very special bedroom because dupes would be sleeping both in a glacier and on top of an iron volcano. Is that how it feels like to be in Iceland? This is the buried temporal tear opener, the key to the Great Escape. But I suddenly realized I forgot to reveal the temporal tear itself on the star map, and the temporal tear opener won't operate until we find it. It's okay to set up this planet in advance, but it's still better if we can find the temporal tear nearby, so we don't need more rocket trips. Are we lucky enough? Yes, we found it. We found it. This could potentially save us from another 100 days of space traveling. Finally, we can start our charging mission. We are doing this in the most primitive way using the manual Radbolt generator. This is an extremely low-tech solution, but adding a light source should prove useful. Hey Otto, there's no need to scout anymore. We need everyone to get in the radiation party. The operation requires frequent uranium ore delivery, so it would be nice to have an autosweeper to help us. Our mechatronics engineer didn't come with us, so one of the dupes has to learn the skill from scratch, but we should have provided enough morale to cover that. I once thought about bringing all 6 dupes and shoot everyone into the temporal tear, but then who's gonna take care of our lovely critters at home? Look at these hard-working dupes. Isn't it fascinating that the ultimate achievement in this game can be done with no pipes and very little power? If we didn't care about the speed boost and autosweeper, it could indeed be done with absolutely zero power. Hey, where did our little slickster go? There's no way it could leave the rocket. What the heck? It was stuck in the tiles. We must get it out now. As we generate Radbolt with enriched uranium, we got some depleted uranium as a byproduct, which is actually a type of refined metal. So instead of treating it like waste, I decided to build it into depleted uranium metal tiles as a memorial. Since we started charging, the process was really smooth, and we are close to firing the temporal tear opener. But Otto seems to be quite stressed. I'm not sure why, but he deserves better. Let's get him a massage table. Massage table is a really noob building. I did not bother to use one even in my previous max difficulty runs. But we can definitely afford to power one, so why not let our dupes enjoy for a while? It's not necessary at all, but I want dupes to breach the temporal tear in a relaxed and nice condition. I promised I'd be treating my dupes nicely, right? The stress is relieved, and Otto is back to normal. It is time for the final launch towards the temporal tear, fire the opener, and embrace the fullerene meteors. This rocket might be tiny, but it accompanied us through so many planet adventures. No matter where they end up, I'm confident our 5 dupes and the little slickster will survive. Let's do it! When we started this colony, our options are really limited because we're doing the no-pipe challenge. But we managed to work out oxygen and food alternatives and break through the magma biome without any protection or vacuuming. We put together a sugar rocket and visited many planets. We harvested polluted water from the 2nd planet and also our best friend, Slickster. 3rd planet gave us enriched uranium, the key to Great Escape. 4th planet gave us polluted dirt and we would never worry about oxygen again. And the 5th planet gave us sustainable oxalite for our rocket missions. It is the variety of resources and buildings in this game that made our no-pipe Great Escape possible. What? Our dupes are rejected by the temporal tear? How is this even possible? They are suffocating and stuck on the surface. We must rescue them now. Bert is stuck on a wolframite tile. Learn the digging skill now and dig your way back to safety. Not again. You always pick the worst possible time to sleep. What are we gonna do now? The rocket is gone and they are stranded on this planet, but there are some polluted dirt left and there are a few wild sleetweeds that we can cook into food. Is this how the Martian feels like? Fortunately, we still have Stinky stationed at home planet grooming slicksters. They can survive until Stinky build a new rocket from scratch and come for the rescue, right?